All right, Nick Caley has spoken. I was there. I was on the scene. Cody was there. He was on the scene. And there was some interesting stuff to take away. It is SNL, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots with you. Cody, just your overall biggest takeaways from the introductory presser of Nick Caley.
It certainly got what we expected from no clear, like, oh, it's going to be this much Patriots, this much McVay. Hey, we're going to do what we can with the players that we have. That's the style of offense that we're going to run. I sort of expected that line of answering from Nick Caley, but he went into his background. I thought he had a lot more presence at the podium than Bobby Slowick had this past season. And he talked a lot about being flexible, adjusting, no square peg, round hole. And that's kind of the reason Bobby Slowick's not the offensive coordinator anymore. He wasn't flexible. He didn't adjust. He did try to go square peg, round hole a lot. And to me, that was the big thing that jumped off the page about Nick Caley is you got to be able to be malleable. You got to be able to adjust. You can't be taking some sort of system that you've learned somewhere else and plopping it on to a roster and hoping that that's going to be enough for an offense. And that's what it felt like at times Bobby Slowick did. And that's why Bobby Slowick coaches in Miami and not in Houston anymore.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting hearing DeMeco Ryans just basically confirm what we had kind of suspected about Bobby Slowick and only the manner in which DeMeco could. And he immediately kind of hit the ground running. And here was DeMeco Ryans, what he had to say when he made his first statement.
Long process, thorough process of interviewing a lot of great candidates, college and pro candidates. And, you know, I'm thankful for the McNairs, thankful for Nick Caserio and his help, their involvement in supporting me through this process. And, man, I couldn't be more excited to welcome, Nick Caley as our new offensive coordinator, right? He brings a wealth of knowledge, smart coach. He's coached on the defensive side, offense, coached multiple positions, worked with a lot of different people, various schemes, not just beholden to one scheme. He's very well-versed in run game, pass game, protection. Like, he's well-versed in it all. So very smart coach, very energetic guy, great leader. Everybody I talked to about throughout this process had nothing but awesome things to say about Nick and his approach, the players that he's coached. Like, there's nothing but rave reviews about Nick and how he's helped guys in their careers. So I'm excited to work with him. I can't wait for our players to get here and work with him. I know they'll feel his energy, feel his excitement, and what he's able to bring to our team. So with that, I just want to welcome Nick Caley as our new offensive coordinator.
All right, so he mentioned leader. He mentioned multi-system, not just married to one system. I think, look, Bobby Slowick had only coached under Kyle Shanahan. I think that was kind of the census. I'm not saying DeMeco crapped on Bobby Slowick. I think he just kind of told us what needed to change and what needed to go down in about as good of a way as he could. So I think right off the top, you kind of got a grasp of what the reasoning was and why he decided to do that.
Yeah, and look, we could see why Bobby Slowick needed to go. I mean, there were things that he couldn't fix. He couldn't get it together with the way that he operated an offense, and he was probably limited into what he can do having only coached offense under Kyle Shanahan and being married to that system and not being flexible and being able to adjust. And that's the charge that Nick Caley's going to have, because the guys that he has in the building right now, it's going to look really different by the time they get to training camp, just by virtue of what they have to do, who they have to move on from, and who they have to go out there and get at various positions. So he could have an idea today about what he wanted to run, but if it's very much based off of what the players are going to be able to do, that's going to change until he figures out what this roster ultimately is going to look like. And it felt like Bobby Slowick was always trying to, hey, it didn't matter who the guys were, we're going to run this offense. And it didn't work. And the rest of the league figured it out, and it didn't work for Bobby Slowick, and it didn't work for the Houston Texans, and that's why Nick Caley's here.
On the super chat, swarm into the soup. Trill Kick X asks, he says, Nick's confidence jumped out the most. Landry, how you get 3 questions? Laughing emoji. Yeah, I thought it was kind of a McVay-ish type of vibe. I mean, I think most people got two in there. I just asked a follow-up. I think there were 3 questions that people wanted to know. So I do it for the people. I don't do it to hear myself. And quite frankly, the guy to my left was just kind of window shopping. I was kind of waiting for some magic. I think Stoots sitting this one out kind of led to where I had to try to ask a third in there. Stoots was just sitting there. Okay. I don't know what he was doing.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, my biggest thing was what's the deal with the offensive line? And it got asked twice before the microphones even got to us. What am I supposed to do? Just repeat a question like some other people did? Okay. I don't go there just to ask a question.
You're proving my point. That's why I just think if you power rank the most relevant questions, I think my 3 probably cracked the top 8, 9. Zach Rose says Caley was assertive and really spoke well. Also, Landry, how dare you ask DeMeco back-to-back questions? Love me some DeMeco, man. And I thought DeMeco was as good as he's ever been. I thought DeMeco did a really, really good job. I thought he seemed confident. I thought he had jokes. I thought he was solid. I liked what I heard from DeMeco as much as I did from Caley. And I think Caley is kind of a big mystery. We've got 2 years of DeMeco growing, and I thought that was the most intriguing part of this whole thing is just kind of how DeMeco spoke. And he was asked, DeMeco, about how he arrived at Nick Caley. This is what the head coach of the Houston Texans had to say.
To a lot of great people throughout this process, and just it was clear as I kept going through it, talking to people and going through my process, it was very clear that Nick was the right guy for our team. Just with his energy, right, his leadership ability. I think with him being able to understand the run game, pass game, with him being in multiple schemes that were successful, understanding how to tailor the offense to the players that we have, that led me to Nick. And I feel really strong in my conviction that he can lead us and get us over the hump. Right? We've had a lot of good success these first 2 years, and the reason for doing it is I think there's another level that we can go to. And so I said earlier, it's my job to take this organization to new heights, and I think hiring Nick will help us to get there.
There you go. Next step, good to great, not satisfied.
Yep.
No mediocre treadmill. That's what you want to hear from your head coach. Really impressive to see DeMeco go up there and handle that as just a leader of the organization, a guy who made the decision. He was asked, how much did CJ have to do with it? He put that big DeMeco smile up and he said, I make the hires.
Yeah. I had to hire an offensive coordinator.
Yeah. I think this was a big, I like to over romanticize a press conference. Very few do it as much as me, but I think this was, I think it was the next step in DeMeco Ryans becoming more comfortable as a head coach who has to make extremely tough decisions, because the reality is he really hasn't had to do that, like outside of in-game and stuff like that. And I think he's handled that very well. But I think that's something that, a lot of times that prevents guys from reaching their full potential as head coaches. And I think that's something that all of them deal with. We've listed the organizations that have had to deal with such things. And I think DeMeco Ryans seems to be growing and evolving in that area. And I think this was like a big step in DeMeco Ryans making a decision. We don't know if it's going to be the right decision or not, but it was a necessary decision. And I thought that was a good layout by DeMeco Ryans as to why he made the decision, what he thought about why the decision needed to be made. And the other thing is, and I think this is a tap in the back to the people in the chat and the people who listen, view, subscribe to Houston Football, The Locker Room, and SNL, is what DeMeco says in season, while it might contradict what your public thoughts are, you're not dumb. You have a pretty good grasp of how things are going. Sometimes coaches are going to protect their guys. But basically what DeMeco said in that opening statement 2 clips ago was everything that the majority of you people, and I do mean you people, have been saying about Bobby Slowik for a long time. This guy doesn't adjust. This guy is square peg, round hole. This guy has no charisma and leadership. And in season, DeMeco's sitting there saying, well, I like what we're doing on offense and all that type of stuff. But when push comes to shove, I know a lot of times the coaches and the players like to stick their chin up at you, and there'll be plenty of opportunities. Pat yourselves on the back, because DeMeco basically said, you people know what the fuck you're talking about. And you were right. I just couldn't really do it in season. So pat yourselves on the back, chat.
Yeah, well, I would tell you that the annoying part about that is we all saw it about week 12, and they went through the playoff run with Bobby Slowick still calling the offense. Like, could something else have worked? Could they have salvaged 2024, maybe got a little bit further with that? Ultimately, probably not. They don't have the players for it. Again, it goes back to that big thing we've talked about. It wasn't just one symptom that made the offense crappy. It was a multitude of them. And Bobby Slowick being one of the biggest symptoms of the offensive issues. He's removed. Let's see what they do about removing, changing, swapping out those players.
I just think it's a smart, informative community here, where whether you agree, disagree, whether I'm wrong, which happens a lot, you're wrong, happens a lot. I think it's just like the overall, like sometimes there's like an element of, well, these coaches know and the fans don't know, and the fans with hindsight would always say this. Well, good to see that he made the decision, and good to see that he agreed. Art, Swarm in the Soup. You ain't never hate. Swarm. $2. Appreciate you. Mi amigo. Tro kicks again. I don't know if it's because of V-Day, Tom, but fell hard for Nick. Okay. Pause. I thought he handled himself well. I didn't hear anything like revolutionary. I was going to try to ask another question. I wanted to hear what he thought of Dalton Schultz as a player, like more so than like Joe Mixon. Like, what do you think of Dalton Schultz? We know what you're going to think of Joe Mixon. It's hard not to think that of Joe Mixon, but I would have liked to have heard what he thought that Dalton Schultz's strengths were.
Yeah, he just gave like a little general thing about the tight ends.
He likes tight ends. He likes tight ends.
He likes tight ends.
Does that mean perhaps they'll draft one? Now, there's two ways of looking at that. Focusing on the tight ends here. Some people will say, well, that means he's going to get the most of the guys that are there. Oh, man, he's going to love Brevin Jordan. Look out. Cade Stover breakout season coming through. Dalton Schultz, here it goes. That could be the case, but it could also mean that he thinks these guys suck. And he's more of a strict grader of the tight end. So there's multiple ways to look at it. I don't think they're going to handcuff him. Like, if we get to the third or fourth round, and let's say he really likes Gunnar Helm, or he really likes some of these tight ends, he might be able to get that tight end, and it's bad news for those guys. So I'm not saying which way it is or not, but if you're sitting there saying, oh, big things for Cade Stover, big things for Brevin Jordan, big things for Dalton Schultz, it's almost like when you cook a meal and you're cooking for someone who like prides themselves on being a really good chef or something, they're probably going to, just because they say they like to cook doesn't mean they're going to like your cooking, and they're going to like, they might be a little bit stricter when they're judging things. So I don't think that's necessarily a good or bad thing for these tight ends. I do think it opens up the possibility of perhaps drafting one.
Yeah, he gave a very generic answer about the tight ends.
He said he loves tight ends twice, though.
He said, I love tight ends, and then he said, I like tight ends at the end. So, he loves them. He likes them. Don't we all, right?
No anal for Nick Caley. ESG Soccer. We are right about liking tight ends. Okay. Trill Kick XZ. Is their answer on Diggs meaning gone? No, the answer on Diggs means, why are you asking about Stefon Diggs at an introductory press conference like that? Yeah. I like DeMeco. You could have asked him about any free agent. He wasn't gonna answer about a specific free agent. And quite frankly, they've already asked him about.
He never does. Like ever. Very rarely does he ever go into like. I mean, we're gonna talk to him at the combine in less than 2 weeks, and you maybe can get a quote about one specific guy, but for the most part, he's not going to talk about the process, talking to the guys or anything like that. He never does. He never does. He didn't do it when he first got here. He didn't do it last year. He's not going to do it this year. Like, he might tell you how the guy did that season. We all saw how guys did that season. Like, but he's not going to tell you anything about the process or the updates. They play it very close to the vest.
Yeah. Injuries, anything with players specifically, especially something like that. He's not going to give you anything. Art Vandelay again on the soup. One thing that I thought was telling was when DeMeco talked about Cole Popovich and having a single voice in that room. Felt like there was some conflict going on in the OL room. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I listened to that on the way back. He said one voice on the
well, here, let's hear DeMeco what he had to say.
On the tight end, on the offensive line. Here you go.
Cole as our offensive line coach to lead that room, just having one voice to lead it. Feel really strong about that. Cole helped a lot of our young players when it came to developing. He had a really great relationship with a lot of guys, and guys think very highly of Cole and what he's able to do. And I think him having a prior relationship with Nick as well, and them being able to work together and them to hit the ground running instantly. I think that also led to my decision, and I know we'll be better for it.
I think the tight end thing might be a little bit different than, say, the wide receiver thing. It does feel like they're relying on Cole Popovich to at least make do with what they have right now. And maybe there's going to be some small elements sprinkled in there, but I think right now they're kind of effed at offensive line. That doesn't mean they're not going to try to improve it, but I do almost think, much like when Caserio first got here and it was process over results and the assets were limited and he was handcuffed by a lot of the decisions from the previous regime, I think that's kind of how Cole Popovich should kind of be looked at in year one, just reading between the lines and looking at what the reality is with the contract situations.
Everybody's under contract outside of Kendrick Green. Like everybody who played significant snaps is under contract for this upcoming season.
So I think that's why the familiarity kind of factors in this decision, not just the familiarity with Popovich, but the familiarity with these players, because the bed's kind of been made. It's not a great bed. It's not a comfortable bed. It's basically like a prison bed with no spring, but they might try to decorate it up a little bit, but I do think there's going to be an element of Popovich having to get the most out of some of these pieces that are already there.
Well, they just can't do that much on the offensive line. They're pot committed at least 2 spots, probably 3 spots with this offensive line. So you really can't do that much. And if continuity is important with the guy that was already in the room and some of the success he had with the young guys, obviously him having a relationship and knowing maybe what Caley's like and what he's going to like to run from the New England days, that's a big help for Popovich in the conversation. And, look, I just don't know that this is an offensive line room that probably is going to take well to a bunch of change. So I guess they see it as, hey, a guy they're familiar with inserting a little change. Maybe that's a little bit easier for those guys to deal with because, look, this ain't the Eagles where you got 5 grinders and 3 grinders behind them backing them up. There's some guys that need their hand held and told that they're doing a good job in this offensive line room.
Zach Rose on the soup says Stoots didn't get to ask questions because he didn't reply to the group chat. Talking about the media group chat.
Yeah. I didn't ask questions because all my questions got asked.
Use a window shopper. Mad at me. I think I know why. Let's hear from Nick Caley talking about the focus of the scheme and why this thing's going to be 2 words, player driven.
Coordinator, to answer your second part of the question, really excited to get an opportunity to evolve this scheme and put, it's not going to be my spin. It's going to be what's best for our players. And it's always going to be what's best for our players. No, we're not pounding a square peg into a round hole. It's going to be based on the strengths of our quarterback, the players, and the guys on this team. So that's what it'll always be, designed around.
Yeah. And I think that's cool. It's a cool balance if it's able to happen. I think it's probably the right approach.
It's cool when you have a bunch of good players. They don't have a bunch of good players. Yeah. So, you want to tell me we're not going to have a quarter where Nico Collins doesn't get a reception? Awesome, because Bobby had too many of those. You want to tell me you're going to get Joe Mixon going a little bit better because the way we scheme it up from a running standpoint, it's going to be good. That's great. There's nobody else I'd be excited about on this offense where you're telling me we're going to get them going. Oh, okay, cool. It's really easy to say you're player driven coming from LA where you've got Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams. It's really easy to say you're player driven from when New England was getting things done with Gronk and Tom Brady.
But I don't think
Julian Edelman.
I don't
Like,
but I look at it another way. I don't look at it differently. I look at it like where you can add an element to that. I would also say that player driven can also mean maybe you kind of change the way you call an offense when your offensive line sucks. Like maybe you don't ask Dalton Schultz to block. Maybe Joe Mixon, like maybe that guy can go catch the ball. Like I look at it that way too.
It's not just about putting guys in a position to succeed. It's keeping them from failing too. Like, because there are too many guys that just failed constantly for the Texans in 2024, and they kept getting put in that position.
Jared asked this question. I'm going to hit it. You tell me if it's valid or not.
Race car!
Does Nick Caley sound like Sean McVay?
I don't know if he's saying he sounds like him or if he feels like the kind of the cadence and the rhythm of the words are similar.
I think he sounds a lot like him, dude. I think this is valid. I don't even think this is a race card.
Well, I brought this up a couple of days ago, and you acted like I was an idiot for bringing it up.
No, I didn't. I just said, "Oh, okay, we'll see what it sounds like." So we'll see what it sounds like. That's all I said. It is SNL, Landry Locker, Cody Stoots, straight from the Nick Caley presser. I think Cody was there. Yes. Why are you looking at me like that?
I'm looking at you like anything.
I asked Nick Caley, one of the three, how would you describe this scheme? Like, it's one thing to say player driven, but when a jamoke like me has to describe a scheme, a lot of times it's West Coast offense, all that. How would one like me or the people in the chat or Cody Stoots describe this scheme?
It's going to be our scheme based on what we do, and I don't say that to throw any curveballs. It really is. I mean, my history dating back to when I first got into the National Football League under Coach Belichick is we were going to be a game plan team. If that meant we were going to run duo and gap schemes and run the ball 45 times to win the game, then that's what we were going to do. If we had to run more perimeter plays, wide zone, and we felt that was going to give us the edge, we were going to do that. It was all going to be based. We were going to ask our guys to do what they do well, but it was going to be based on what we do to help us win. And at the end of the day, we want to win, and that's priority for us.
That's the anti-Bobby. I mean, that's just basically what that is. Like, that's the anti-Bobby.
I've heard Bobby say, though, this is the Houston Texans scheme. It's not the San Francisco 49ers scheme. I've heard him say that before, though.
But I think that was a different context. Like, Bobby kept talking about how they were close in the offense and how, oh, no, we're close. Oh, we're having some good practice. No, we're close. Dude, they were close for 12 weeks, and then they never got there. Like, and then the time that they did have like a little like microcosm of success, it's when we could all look and be like, wow, they kind of changed some things up a little bit. Like, he was resistant to change. Caley seems willing to, even on a week-to-week basis, if necessary, embrace it. Change seems scary to Bobby. It's not scary to Nick Caley.
Texan on the soup says, I think when Cody brought it up that they sound the same, you gave him a race card. That's possible. Gave you the RC, perhaps. Chase says that Stoots is going to explode and treat Landry like Bobby treated CJ one day.
Probably the same height difference. CJ looking over Bobby. That's how we did at Ohio State, bitch. This ain't Ohio State anymore, CJ.
So the only man in the world that is worse than retiring than Ric Flair and George Strait, John McClane was on the scene, and the general asked Nick Caley about protecting CJ Stroud.
Hold on. I thought Caley's second answer about protecting Stroud was better. So this is the Greg Bailey question.
Oh, the Greg Bailey. Okay.
This is the Greg Bailey question because I thought it was better and more descriptive.
Okay. Was he just trying to just get rid of John?
I mean, he just was very, well, it takes 11. He actually went into some description here. So this was Nick Caley on how he can make sure with the offense they protect CJ Stroud.
Offensive line, the quarterback, obviously the halfback. You got to be able to see the game through the same set of eyes, and you got to be going in the same direction, and you got to be tied together. And it starts with communication, and it starts with protecting inside out and establishing a pocket, the depth of the pocket, the width of the pocket, and that extends obviously into the tight ends, receivers when you're chipping and stuff like that. But it does. It really starts inside out, and it starts seeing it through the same lens, and we all got to be coordinated in that.
Inside out. Okay. Damn.
Their interior offensive line was awful last year.
Starts from the inside out. Okay.
You got to see it all the same
Trying to
ways.
grasp that.
And the one thing he did say to McLean's answer was he talked about how with the offensive line, there's rules that they have to know as an offensive line. It felt like there were never any rules, so to speak, when you saw offensive line people break down the Texans offense from last year. It's like you see like Ross Tucker or somebody like that, former offensive lineman, even Seth did it, former defensive lineman. He's like, what are they supposed to do? Like it doesn't feel like these guys have the right setup to follow, and then guys just look confused and they miss things, so that's something they got to drill down and make sure that whoever the offensive linemen are know, because it didn't feel like they ever knew it last year.
That can be as much of a quarterback thing, though, if we're being honest. Like it can be the quarterback before, it can be the center, it can be the scheme, it can be a lot of things. We don't know what it is, but I think the one thing that we do know is very obvious. They did whatever the hell it was, and however the hell it got there. It appeared unknown more times than it should have, and they're lucky they didn't get CJ killed last year with it.
Well,
quite frankly.
And he said it right there. How can you, with the offense, make it better? He's like, well, the QB and the offensive line have to be on the same page, and the halfback has to be there as well. There were too many times QB and the offensive line weren't on the same page last year. Maybe sometimes it was CJ's fault. Sometimes it was the 5 Jamoke's fault. Sometimes it was probably both their faults. Sometimes it's probably Bobby's fault. Well, you know what? Fix it. It's got to be better in 2025. Or you'll smash right into that divisional wall yet again. And we'll all be sitting here next offseason being like, well, here they go. Divisional round again. SOT.
The Jenkins says at least he has proof of use of weapons. I would disagree with that. He doesn't have any proof. He has as much proof as Bobby Slowick did, if we're doing that. So I wouldn't there's a lot of things that I think you can get excited about that Caley does have that Bobby Slowick didn't have, but I would disagree with that. He, as far as like utilizing and what happened, he has as much proof of maximizing assets as Bobby Slowick did. He has more experience, but there's no proof.
There's no proof of concept. This is not somebody who's had to call an offense or operate an offense or build an offense before. There's no proof of concept. And I'm glad this person asked this question, because DeMeco Ryans got asked about first-time play caller. And, hey, just like all of us, maybe not everybody in the chat, DeMeco knows that everybody has their first time.
There's always, everybody has their first time. I was a first-time play caller. Right? There are a lot of guys who have their first time, so I wasn't beholden to or nervous about hiring someone who was their first time, because it's about the person. And I think you get the right person to do the job, and I truly believe that Nick can do that. And it's play calling is also about who you surround yourself with. And I think, we have a really strong staff offensively and defensively, surround ourselves with the right people who can help when it comes to calling it for the first time.
Preach, man. Thank you. Mm-hmm. If you have the mindset where it has to be someone who's called plays before, maybe the situation calls for that. But also, if you have that mindset, there would never be an Andy Reid. There would never be a Sean McVay. There would have never been a Bill Walsh. There would never be a Sean Payton. There would never be a Cliff Kingsbury. There would never be a Kellen Moore. It never would have happened if you have that mindset. So maybe sometimes you want to approach things that way, but to have that as a permanent preference, there would never be a single play caller in the world. And chances are you would hire someone who has failed multiple times. It's fine to fail, but I'm glad DeMeco gets that. I'm starting to feel like DeMeco might be my spirit animal. How do you feel about that? I feel like he might be. I feel like me and DeMeco might have a lot. I think we might have a lot of the same philosophy. I think he should hire me as an advisor.
I'm not buying that at all.
I'm just trying to win, baby. We got the same philosophy, different delivery.
But if you want to say it that way, that's fine, I guess.
Same philosophy, different delivery.
I guess.
Spirit animal, man. DeMeco is my spirit animal.
That's
Telling you.
It's a little out there.
Yeah, but the first time play caller thing is the biggest eye roll for me.
Yeah,
Experience comes and experience comes in different ways. And it's always like convenient. Like it's going to come, there's going to be traditional experience, there's going to be untraditional experience. It's going to come in different ways.
Yeah. And
Different ways.
look, there's going to be growing pains with a first-time play caller. There'd be growing pains with guys who've called plays before being stuck in their ways and not being malleable, being able to adjust.
This is the best idea. I'm going to go get on steroids. I'm going to get jacked. And I'm going to be DeMeco's big dom. I'm going to be on the headset. I'm going to be the big dom. I got to go on the roids.
Are you saying that because you think Big Dom's on roids or because you're not big enough to be Big Dom?
I'm tall enough. I just got to get some mass, and it's got to be like impressive mass. It can't be like skinny fat mass.
Well, you're like, I mean, yeah, the height is imposing.
Yeah. 6'5.5", 240, but I'm going to make about 6'5.5" to 270, just jacked.
Yeah.
Bald too. I'm going to go bald.
We got big Dom and Big Land in the Super Bowl in San Fran.
Trill back at it. We appreciate you, mi amigo. Might have been asked, but will there be a live stream with y'all on the draft? We're going to do something during the draft. We're going to figure it out. We got a lot of stuff in the works. First of all, a lot of people say that, and it's like you don't have anything. You're just saying that. We're going to be at the Combine. We're going to be live. We're going to give you the best Combine coverage that you could possibly have from beginning to end. It is going to be exclusive. It's going to be great. It's going to be my channel, Stoots channel, most importantly, the SNL channel.
Yep.
All the way. So something will be done at the draft. There will be some gatherings. There will be elite coverage. I think the streams are fun. I think we just got to kind of figure out the organization of them. Maybe I need to set up like some guests to come in and give their opinions to keep it fresh, keep it nice and fresh, keep it nice and authentic. So we'll definitely do something, but we want to make sure it's well done and it's not just like some basic ass stuff. We got you covered. Promise you. You know that.
Yeah, would rather no ass it and repeat last year than half ass it and make it look bad. So
yeah, that's you're just spitting fire right now. Look at you. No ass, half ass, San Fran, Big Land. Colton Flom, he almost looks a bit like Sirianni to me.
High-grade marijuana called Kush on the streets.
Come on, man.
Race car.
Texan, number 69 locker at DT. I'm not playing DT, I promise you that.
old Nick Sirianni picture. Yeah, it's not there for me.
Nah, come on.
Nah, I don't.
They're nothing alike.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe like with the beard is way kind of like, you know, it's not well kept and all that kind of stuff. Like Caley, he had that thing tight. You could tell he recently been to his beard guy. Yeah, I don't see it.
D Lime says, I see Cody wearing that dress shirt with no undershirt.
Never wear the undershirt. Don't know where Landry came up with that poppycock yesterday. I'll let it fly, baby. And when it gets Hawaiian shirt season, I'll let it fly even more. Just let it really get out there.
But yeah, the press conference
show the heart for the people. You want any more? You got to subscribe to the OnlyFans.
Oh Lord. Texan says at 6'5", 270 you are D Lyman. Yeah, that's fair. Maybe.
6'5", 270, probably a little light for a defensive tackle. Maybe a little too tall too. You probably need to be an edge guy at that height weight.
Maybe. But yeah, I thought it was a good press conference. They weren't going to tell us everything. I walked away intrigued. Some questions were answered, some weren't. But I think the biggest takeaway was the DeMeco. I'm going to drop a DeMeco video actually at 5 on my channel, kind of breaking this down. So we'll hear what DeMeco, the biggest, just the takeaways, the breakdown, just nice little 10-minute video for the peeps. and then the 10:30 night stream. So, yeah. Did you hear? Is there anything else that you would have liked to have heard from Nick Caley today?
I mean, I guess I probably should have asked about the staff, but it's my understanding that there's going to be an official staff announcement early next week.
Okay.
I mean, we know about Popovich, but I could have asked about somebody else.
Yeah, Texan says Landry would have been an old school split in your D lineman days.
Would have been an old school spit in your eye defensive lineman.
Oh, but no safety. They made me play some safety. It sucked.
Made you play safety? What a terrible. Were you this? How tall were you in high school?
6'5".
Did you play safety in high school when you were 6'5"?
Well, you had to practice both ways. Our school was weird where you had to practice both ways. It was a big school, but you had to practice both ways. So if you're a receiver, you had to have a defensive position too. So they kind of split practice in half. So it's kind of a waste of time. But yeah, very skinny, very skinny.
Who's the NFL guy you played with?
Oh yeah, 10 o'clock. I said 10:30. I must panda lean. Thank you. 10 o'clock. Yes. What'd you say?
Who was the NFL guy on that team?
Henry Melton.
Yeah.
But yeah, there we go. That was the Nick Caley reaction. A lot of people excited. A lot of people wondering what's next. And I'm intrigued to kind of see this whole thing shape up as the combine approaches. And I think the first big answer is going to be free agency, how they attack free agency, what they do.
It's less than a month away.
Because I'm starting, like, as I put this picture together, I'm starting to think they're kind of stuck at offensive line. So I think the skill positions are going to be where they attack. And then next year, I think we'll gradually see an overhaul, but I don't think it's realistic to completely overhaul the offensive line while completely overhauling the skill position guys. And with the contract situations being what they are, I think it would make more sense to just try to get the most, make do with what you got. Maybe you get some gems and steals. That would be great. Like if you could find like the right guard, left guard equivalent of Jared Patterson, like maybe that would be cool. But I think it's a possibility. And I also think that the stockpiling of picks is very crucial too. Stockpiling of picks.
If they could just find a George Fant level player, but at guard in free agency, that'd go a long way into solving some issues because they don't have a right guard. Shaq Mason can't be the right guard again. And then that's not the best spot for Juice Scruggs. It's not the best spot for Patterson. They've never trusted Nick Broker to get on the field, even though he's been on the roster for 2 years. And Ladarius Henderson didn't play football last year, so they don't have a right guard. So I'd like to see a Fant level right guard, someone who's played a lot of football, been around the block, not played too much football like Shaq has. I'd like to see that investment free agency.
Be wild, man. Looking forward to it. Very much so.
Be good.
Shout out to everyone in the chat. Pat yourself on the back. You knew it about Bobby. DeMeco might have been a little bit combative in accepting it, but he came to your side of the fence today. He came to your side of the fence today. So pat yourselves on the back. You were right. Most of you were right. So I consider this a win for the entire SNL community all over the place. So pat yourself on the back. Fun times.
Barry Horowitz style for you wrestling fans.
They don't know who that is. How many people you think know who Barry Horowitz is?
For the wrestling fans, I said for the wrestling.
I don't know. I don't even know if wrestling fans know at this point.
Right.
We might be dating ourselves. Yeah. Barry Horowitz. Not seeing anyone that knows Barry Horowitz. There you go. There's someone. Got it. Pat yourself on the back. Anything else you'd like to add before we get out of here, Cody?
Nope.
Appreciate y'all for coming through. Subscribe, like, ride along. Always remember, when it comes to this Texan stuff, whether you know who Barry Horowitz is or you don't, We're all in it together.
Eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.